Well, the World Championship of motorcycles, you know, goes all around the world, being the World Championship. But one of their absolute jewels in the crown is the race in Holland at a place called Assen, which is a great racetrack. Weaves through wooded hills and always collects an absolutely huge crowd. I mean, enormous crowd. 100,000, 150,000 people roll up to watch the motorcycles at Assen. And in 1977 was a particularly memorable year because you had all the greats of the day, people like Englishman Barry Sheene, Giacomo Agostini, the great Italian driver, and the local hero was a guy called Will Hartzog, and he was pretty good, but he certainly was really, generally speaking, no match for Agostini and Barry Sheene, who were really duking it out for the World Championship. And of course, in those days, all those guys did the Arterman TT, although they're sort of backing away from the TT a bit then because it was getting too dangerous. But they were serious riders in the World Championship.
Got to make the scene, watch hard up machine down in Assen. Well, we make it every year 'cause it's the place to be. And if you listen, I'll tell you why. You can wake up in the morning with a bottle of beer and hear those racing engines roaring on by.
For 51 weeks of every year, Assen is no more than a typical quiet town in northern Holland. But for 1 week in June, it attracts 200,000 motorcycle enthusiasts from all over Europe. The serenity of this peaceful place will soon be shattered by the friendly invasion, for Assen is the home of the Dutch TT. This is probably the greatest gathering of motorcycles you'll ever see in one place and at one time.
Assen, out of all the Grand Prix circuits, is probably the most demanding circuit of all. It's about 5 and odd miles round, and in that 5 and odd miles you've got so many corners and big variations. You've got very, very fast corners, you've got some very sharp hairpins and some very scratchy corners. Crowd-wise, they get a bigger crowd here than a bad crowd here is about 90,000. A good one's in the region of 150.
I think some countries you go to, the crowd doesn't really participate. And at Assen, if you're sort of in the lead, or you're having a big battle even downfield, you know, the crowd sort of take part in it, and you know that's all part of the incentive. It is for me anyway.
My fan is Agostini, and I come to Assen see him.
No, I think it's a good circuit, and safety also, I think. Organized is quite good. It's not good for money, but...
It's my first time here, and I found it kind of difficult. I came up last Sunday and drove around for 2 hours with my car, and I knew where to go, but I just haven't quite got down how fast to go.
The whole town just absolutely stops for 3 or 4 days or whatever it is, and it completely revolves around the Dutch TT.
Practice. This season has seen terrific battles in the 250 and 350cc classes. A number of privateers on equally competitive machinery have not only been challenging but beating the works riders like Harley-Davidson's reigning 250 and 350 champion Walter Villa and 15 times world champion Giacomo Agostini on his Yamaha. Ulsterman Tom Heron is one such privateer. 27-year-old Tom, in his 3rd year with the Continental Circus, is hoping for a good result at Assen. How are things going in practice?
The training up until today was very good. Surprisingly good for me, for it's not my type of circuit. As most people know, short circuit scratching isn't what I'm made out to be, but It's been working very good. Yesterday it was 4th in the 250 and 5th in the 350 in the overall.
Another privateer in with a chance is South African Cork Ballington. Like Tom, Cork is mounted on Yamaha machinery and has had mixed fortunes so far.
The racing season started off tremendously with a win at Imola and followed by the Paul Ricard third in the 250. But then things went wrong from Salzburg onwards. Salzburg, I had a bad crash, just before the very bad crash, and this messed me up a bit. At Hockenheim, the following weekend, I didn't have a start in the one class, which ruined the chance of getting points in that one. But I got points in the 250 there. At Imola, I was in third place in the 250 and ran out of petrol. From there, we went to Irama, where I was brought down by a tail ender who was 6 laps behind. Don't know why he wasn't black flagged, and broke my wrist, which just ended a lovely little month of racing. My hand is improving every day, like, you know. I can open a bottle of beer now, so it's got to be getting better.
And now all is ready for the 350cc race. Having had problems in practice, Agostini is in an undignified position towards the back of the grid. After a fantastic start, our two privateers, Tom and Cork, head the field, thrilling this packed 150,000 crowd. As they complete the first lap, it's Heron from Ballington. Behind them, Mario Lega parts company with his Morbidelli. On the second lap, Cork gets ahead of Tom. Lega walks back to the pits as the leaders complete the lap. Agostini, fighting to stay on terms with the privateers. The rest of the field sort themselves out. Bernard Fowl becomes another victim of the chicane. Halfway stage now, and Tom begins to close on Cork. Rougerie, Soussin and Fernandez head the bunch that is in hot pursuit of the leaders. But Soussin crashes, leaving the two Frenchmen in third and fourth positions and rapidly closing. Cork gets the message.
Assen is one of those racetracks that you don't hardly ever hear about in the car racing. I'm sure they have local club races there, but it's not a track that's ever been used for international racing. It's probably too narrow for cars and the wrong shape, and so it never gets used as a car racing track, but certainly is a very popular venue for the motorbike.
With 2 laps to go, Rougerie overtakes Heron. Fernandez also gets by, and the pressure is really on Cork. As Cork negotiates the chicane for the last time, Rougerie has him in his sights. But Cork has judged the race perfectly and crosses the line for his first Grand Prix win of the year. So Ballington wins, and Heron, despite slowing towards the end, still manages a fine 4th place.
Fantastic, eh? Marco, you think it's good? Well, Benny?
A jubilant Cork Ballington acknowledges the cheers of the crowd. For the 25-year-old South African, victory is especially sweet after a bad season. An overjoyed Bronwyn shares his triumph. Despite tight leathers restricting movement, Cork managed to lead for 15 of the 16-lap race.
Right, you did not get a shake on over there.
Thanks.
Cork is accompanied on the rostrum by the highest-placed Dutch rider, Jack Middelberg.
The race ones were slightly tighter and they started giving me cramp.
Oh.
And I couldn't keep it on where I should, you know. I had
Is that when you sort of lost a bit of ground?
Yeah, I was battling to break and everything, you know.
Because there was one space actually where Tom actually caught you a bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
That was it.
Started having real bad trouble with us.
Oh dear. Are you getting fatter or the leather's shrinking? Which way?
No, I'm getting big muscles.
You know, early on I thought that if the race continued with me behind them, you know, it would have been a good finish for I could have maybe pulled something at the last lap, but the pace was too hard for too long for me, you know. Just couldn't keep it up.
There's another race though, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's going to happen in that one?
We'll wait and see.
And in the 250 event, both Tom and Cork got away to a brilliant start. It looked as though the battle in the 350 race was to be repeated. Once again, the Ulsterman began by showing the South African the way round. Another South African, Alan North, goes west, proving that number 13 can indeed be unlucky for some. But Cork's hopes for a repeat of his 350 success are not to be. A sick motor forces him to retire. Meanwhile, Tom is involved in a great scrap for 4th place with Katayama, Villa and Ekrode. Right from the start, this has been Mick Grant's race. Riding the Kawasaki in fine style, he's in a class of his own. But a sudden dramatic change in the weather makes everyone slow down. The riders, using dry weather tyres, know only too well how dangerous their task has become. However, the terrific lead built up by Grant in the early stages stands him in good stead, allowing him to slow right down to a safe and sedate pace and still win the race handsomely. Tom was one of the many victims of the conditions. Sliding off on the last lap, he remounted to finish a plucky 10th.
Well done, mate. Cheers. Oh, thank God that's over. When he started ready towards the back end, I just slowed right off. I didn't realise the second blow was coming quite as far up. The last lap I was really worried in case he caught me, but it's worked out okay.
It's still raining heavily as the 500s line up. Agostini, Baker, Sheen, Coulon, Rougerie, Lucinelli, Boneri. But from the third row of the grid, it's local hero Will Hartog who roars away. It's still Hartog as the big bikes kick up the spray. The crowd cheer on their fellow countrymen as Hartog completes the first lap out in front. Conditions are really treacherous. Giovanni Rolando is forced to take to the grass. An anxious moment as he rejoins the track. Hartog is increasing his lead. But Christian Estrosi has moved up 8 places in only 1 lap to head the challenge. The Dutch crowd urge on their countrymen. But Estrosi is a real threat. Rolando again, who still hasn't quite got it all together. Meanwhile, as the leaders mix it with the tail-enders, Estrosi has managed to get past Hartog. Behind the leaders, the big boys jostle for position. Lancivori, Sheen, Coulon, Lucinelli, Hennen and Baker. Sensation at the front. Frenchman Estrosi has crashed, putting Hartog back in the lead to the delight of the crowd. As the track begins to dry out, the pace hots up and the pack begins to close on Hartog. Into the last lap and the Dutch crowd are willing their man to win. Sheen breaks clear from the bunch, but he's left his effort too late. The crowd goes completely wild as Hartog becomes the hero of Holland. Will celebrates with a lap of honor. For him and the crowd, a moment of triumph, but for some, bitter disappointment.
You couldn't even ride in the wet. You go into the corner and the thing wouldn't lay down, and when it did lay down, you couldn't pick it up.
What a moment as Will cheers second man home Barry Sheen to the winner's rostrum. Hartog, the 29-year-old farmer who's been Dutch champion 13 times, is the first Dutchman to win a 500cc Grand Prix. And to do it at Assen, on home ground, is a moment that he and the crowd will never forget.
Motorcycle racing, of course, just like car racing, has the great riders, and obviously the ones that spring right to mind as an Englishman is Mike Hailwood, who's probably the greatest of them all. Over here, you had people like Randy Mamola, Spencer, who were world champion. And of course, Giacomo Agostini was Mike Hailwood's big rival. He came on when he was younger than Mike Hailwood. He came on towards the end of Mike's career, and they had some titanic battles, which is one of the reasons that made Giacomo Agostini as famous as he was, because of his battles and his occasional wins over Mike Hailwood.